then you go find the property, secure the property under contract, and assign the property to them or wholesale the property to them. You can make money that way.
Hey investors, Bradley here from Watson Estates, and you're listening to the largest, fastest growing podcast for Toronto real estate on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Today, our guest on the show, Mathew Frederick. He's a good friend of mine. He's been on our show before, but today we have a brand new thing for you called the Hand Up Generational Wealth Strategy, the HUG strategy that Mathew came up with himself. I can tell he's put a lot of effort into this because it is, in a sense, revolutionary. It deals with, by putting people together, solves some of the largest issues that we face as it relates to real estate in the GTA. So if you're maybe a millennial, you can't come up with a down payment, but you want to invest in real estate for your family and your loved ones to generate the cash flow, then you want to listen up to this strategy. Or maybe you're a Gen Xer and you know, I've got my home, but other than that, I don't really have a game plan to retire other than to sell it. And then where do I go? You want to listen to this podcast. Maybe you're a realtor or a mortgage agent and you've run dry of just going to people to buying and selling, and you want to have a platform to educate them to help others and be able to invest in real estate. And for investors, don't get caught up in your basic BRRRR, flip, rent to owns, all these strategies, because here is a brand new one, which I'm so excited to share with you, coming right out of the mouth of my friend, Mathew Frederick. If you guys learned something today, please hit that like button, please subscribe and show support to the channel. Enjoy the show. Mathew, thanks for joining us on the show. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good, Brad. Great to be here.
I am so excited to have you on the show once again. Some of our fans probably remember you being here last time. And today you've got something brand new for us. You're trying to shake up the industry. So I'm excited to share a little bit more about the concept that you've developed today. But before we do, for anyone that's new, maybe tell us a little bit about your background in real estate and maybe what you're doing today.
Okay, I'll give you a quick 30-second. So I started investing about 30 years ago. And I, like everybody else, I started into buy, fix, and hold and rent, buy, fix, and sell. I did a little bit of lease to own, rent to owns. I did some tax sales here in Ontario, and then I got into commercial real estate, buying plazas, strip plazas, then multifamily, and then mixed. Started building buildings, probably about 240 houses in about 35 house subdivisions, and also 3-story, 4-story condo buildings. I buy in BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Ontario, Arizona, Belize, and Florida. And today, right now, I'm actually building a triplex in in Belize, because obviously by next year, people will be going crazy to have at least a flight down to somewhere warm.
No kidding. Me included. Book me a weekend, okay?
I will.
But yeah, Mathew, I'm so glad you took the time to come join us on the show. And I know for me personally, guys, Mathew's a great contact just to kind of connect with and bounce ideas off of, because he has such a good and vast history in real estate. So I'm really excited for you today to share this concept. I think this is a game changer, and I think it resolves a lot of issues that we're facing today. So maybe tell us, first of all, what's it called? And maybe explain to me how you came up with this concept, because it's very creative and I love it, but I would love to hear that process of kind of figuring out what this new system would look like.
Well, it's called HUG, H-U-G. So Hand Me Up Generational. And here's where it comes from. You know, back in grade 9, my brother bought a leather jacket. And by the time he was in grade 12, he handed it down to me. This strategy is a bit opposite. It would be like my brother buying a leather jacket and giving it to me first. I wear it for 4 years, then I hand it up to him. So that's one of the foundational parts of it, which I'll explain in a little bit. Where I got to this, I'm 56 years old, and I came to Canada as an immigrant. My parents came here, didn't have a whole lot, didn't have generational wealth, didn't have grandparents or, great grandparents who had property here. And therefore, they had to establish themselves, bring the kids up, and then bring up their parents. So by the time they retired, they only had their own house. Obviously, everybody wants to sell their house and downsize. Problem is, today, that bungalow is just as much as that big house. So now they're stuck in a big house, technically, and have nothing to retire on, in a sense. So let's call those people right now, Generation X, 40 years old to about 50 years old, let's say that range. And right now, they do not have generational wealth. They just have their own home with equity. But you know what? When they retire, they'll still have their home what money will they retire on? The opposite side is for millennials. People who are, let's say, between, we'll call them 29 to, who knows, 36. They can't even buy a second investment property. Some of them can't even buy a property right now. So now you have people on opposite ends of a pencil. On one end, you have people who they have a property, but they have no time because of where they are in life to actually deal with a second property, although they can afford it. And you have people on the other end of the pencil, the eraser, who's a millennial, who's like, I want to buy a property. I have a great job, but I can't even get a property. So somehow can they help each other? And that's the foundation of how I started to think about this process.
That's so cool. And I think for the Gen X, it's really interesting because we're seeing a lot of people entering retirement now that are finding themselves more and more challenged with, what wealth do I have? I mean, I've got my house, but I love what you're saying. It's very difficult to tap into that. And specifically in the city, I mean, if anyone listens to any of our podcasts, the biggest issue right now is affordability. So millennials are absolutely squeezed, and maybe they can even come up with the down payment. I don't know, like that's a big challenge, but even getting over the hurdle of qualifying, let's say you even have the money, that qualification is so challenging. So this is a really cool concept. So I'm really excited. I know you and I were thinking of different ways that we could tackle this. And I really want you to be able to explain to us, like, give me maybe an example. Like now I know you've done this a couple of times. Maybe give me one of the examples of what has this look like, practically speaking, so people can get a better idea of how do you do it? Because I think they get what we're doing, but how do we do that?
Okay, so the first one I did it with myself. Now, I've been investing for a long time, so therefore, okay, I have property and I have my retirement taken care of. But so right now I'm 55, 56. If I retire 12 years from now, I'll be around 68. Basically, if I were just I am a regular person, but with just one house, then I don't have time right now to actually deal with property. You see a lot of Gen Xers right now, where they are in life, they're dealing with maybe a health concern. Maybe one parent is having early onset dementia. Maybe one kid has moved back into the house. Maybe that marriage is having a bit of an issue right now. Maybe their middle or upper management super busy. So there's so many things happening right now. They may have access to equity and money to buy a property, but they don't have the time, energy to actually manage that property for the next 10 or 12 years. And by the way, they don't need the cash flow for 12 years sometimes. Either it's 8 years or 10 years or 12 years, but they want something to be there for them in about 12 years. Now, the flip side is that millennial who they need someone to co-sign or JV with them to help them buy that property. And then for the first 6 years or first 8 years or for the first 12 years, they can receive the bulk of the cash flow, which they can put into something very important, like kids' education, maybe through private school, so that child gets to university with advanced training and maybe even gets scholarships. And then in the process, like myself, what I did with my niece and nephew, I bought a property. I put them in charge of actually managing it. They get the cash flow. In this case, they get 100% of the cash flow, but that's a variation depending on the situation for the next 12 years. And we have to do a 12-year thing because 12 years worked for me. So the first 12 years, they manage the property, they get the cash flow. The next 12 years, get the cash flow, which goes nicely to my daughter, who is 13 now, but will be in a great position to receive that money. After 24 years, we sell the property and we split it. In our case, it's 30-70. They get 30, I get 70. It could be 60-40. It could be 50-50. Some people say to me, well, 24 years is a long time. Well, if you believe in RRSPs and you start at 25 and you retire at 67, that's a pretty long time. If you have a RESP and you start your kid at 1 year old, by the time they need that RESP at 18, that's a pretty long time too. So it doesn't have to be 24 years, 12 and 12. It could be 10 and 10, 8 and 8, 6 and 6. It doesn't have to be that one person gets all the cash flow and then the next. But I like it that way because the millennial can use that money now. And that's using the leather jacket first, getting the benefit first, and then handing up the cash flow, handing up the leather jacket to me when I'm in a position where I need it And the good news is I have that property I can borrow against or sell, and I don't have to do anything because the millennial is in charge of taking care of it.
Right. Awesome. Thank you. So it's funny because when you use the word joint venture, which is really what this is, and you're setting up all the proper paperwork, and that's where you can lean on guys like Mathew to help organize this, right? So there's a whole system that can be built behind this that I know you're slowly formulating and talking through yourself as well. But it's funny because a lot of people assume joint ventures are just for large projects, right? Like I'm going to buy a 20-unit building. And that's usually, like for any of the guests we've had on our show, that is kind of where it happens. But you're applying this to a single family home or a duplex, something a lot smaller, and really still making it work for them. So I want to get into some of the risks, and we kind of chuckled a little bit about the timelines. I definitely want to dig into that a bit. But now, I don't know if this was a situation for your nephew, but does this affect the first-time home buyer credit, or how does that kind of play in? Do you look at that as kind of not a concern? I'm curious because I know a lot of people are really excited about getting their deductions on, like, for example, the double land transfer tax in Toronto. Like, how does that kind of play into that?
Okay, so it really depends on the structure itself. And there are really two structures. One, if I'm strong financially, but the millennial is not, then I buy the property in my name and I'm on the mortgage, I'm on title. How do they get a beneficial interest? Well, the joint venture agreement states that the millennial, I'm holding the property in trust for their beneficial interest. So they're not on title, I am, but the document states that they will get a percentage of the cash flow for a number of years, and of course the equity and the appreciation. And I'll get the cash flow and equity appreciation for a number of years, and that property will be sold at a certain time in the future. And now to secure the fact that, what if I just sell the property? What I generally do is what I did with my niece. I said, okay, although the mortgage is mine, I'm going to have you lend me $1,000, and I'm going to register it as a mortgage. Well, nobody registers a $1,000 mortgage because you pay a lawyer $1,500 to register a $1,000 mortgage. But I had her register a mortgage on title, a subordinary mortgage, which means if anything came in a second or third, it would subordinate, but it's a lien. It's a lien on the property. If ever I tried to sell the property without her knowing, whoever's buying the property, that lawyer has to search who is on title. What are all the debts? The first mortgage is my mortgage. That $1,000 mortgage, by the way, it's a 24-year mortgage. It is a one lump payment. It's at 1% above the current rate right now, 25-year term, 25-year amort. So therefore, I'll make one payment at the end, but at least she's encumbered the property with that subordination mortgage. That's one way to do it. Now, if they're strong and they can actually qualify, but they need your help, then two people can buy the property. Both can go on title. Both can be on the mortgage. One person, in a sense, co-signs, and therefore they can have their arrangement that way. And lastly, if it's a corporation and you have each person in the corporation as shareholders, well, then that's a legal entity as well. And the corporation holds the property with the stronger person as the guarantor, but the other person is a shareholder. Does that sort of make sense?
Yeah, it does. So it really depends on how you structure it, if you're on title or not, if you've purchased
Sure.
it under a corp. It really comes case by case.
It's
And
case by
obviously
case.
you need to think those things through and count those costs. Awesome. Okay.
That's
Let's
right.
talk about some risks. All right. This is where we're gonna see if we find any holes in here and allow people to kind of think through what could happen. And I guess anybody that has any other comments or things, put that down in the comments below. Like, let us know if there's any other questions, because I know this is a very new concept. So we're constantly kind of putting it together, right? So let me ask you point blank, like, what are some of the risks you see? Like, before I kind of see if there's any I can think of, like, what are some of the things that, as you've worked through it a few times now, that you need to consider if this is an option for you?
Well, the risk depends on the documentation, if it takes care of all the possible problems. For instance, what if somebody dies? What if there's a divorce? What if there is incapacity? What if there is a bankruptcy? Okay, how do we deal with refinancing? Can we just refinance or not? Can we sell the property? Does it have to be at a certain height in price? For instance, does the property have to go up? Like, for instance, does it sell in 25 years or 24 years or 12 years or 8 years? Or does it have to be, let's say, 30% above market value, original purchase price before we sell it? So there's all these rules with regards to that. Then there's also rules with regards to responsibility. who is responsible for what, and then what is the penalty for non-responsibility. What happens if something goes wrong with the property? Who fixes it? And if one person cannot put their portion in, now the other person can charge them interest until they literally make that payment. So a lot of the problems can be defined, which I've already defined. I have about 45 things that could go wrong, by the way, in any relationship, including a marriage. And if those are defined, that really helps you. Secondly, you have to have the person with character. There are some people who want to get rich quick. And if you want to get rich quick, this is not a get rich quick system. This is you buy a property, you hold on to it for a long time, you use the cash flow for education purposes. And by the way, I wrote that in. The cash flow for the first 12 years, in my scenario, must go towards education for their young adults. And that was purpose built, because when you're an immigrant, when you come here, you realize, in fact, if you're anybody, you realize that your kids right now are competing against kids who have advanced education. In Ontario, there is 1.4 million kids from JK to grade 8, and 630,000 from grade 8, grade 9 to grade 12 in a common school. You have 200,000 kids in advanced private school, and they're getting a lot of extra training, smaller class sizes. So for my niece, I said to her, okay, if you want your child to be in private school, this is specific to solving that problem. By the way, it doesn't have to be education. You can make it specific to solving a different problem for them. If they want to, I don't know, become a pilot, or if they want to, whatever their goal is, I've made the strategy tied to their goal that will help them with wealth. And of course, my money goes to me for whatever I've laid out. So again, it's dynamic. It isn't something where it has to be for one or the other. It's a lifestyle. It's
Is this within the joint venture agreement? You're outlining where the funds are going?
Correct.
Wow.
I outline where the funds are going.
Wow. So
Yes.
you're being ultra specific with those.
Yes.
Interesting. Now, can it be more open-ended where it's like, I'm just going to get the cash for whatever purposes? Or do you find that having a specific goal helps? Like, does that?
Yes.
Okay.
That's brilliant. And that's why I do it. I make sure it's specific. When you have a specific goal, it's a long-term goal, whether it's 6, 10, or 12 years, I find the partner is more involved in achieving that goal because they're focused, as opposed to a general JV where you put your money wherever you want, right? If somebody is driven, I find that they are better partners. And then, of course, they have to have character. Now, this can't be a person who's broke, someone who has no job, no income, no self-respect. It has to be somebody who has self-respect, has a job, a career, income, is trying their best to buy that property, but they can't, and they have a greater goal than just to make cash flow. And that's who the partner, that's the partner I'm looking for. And I found that works better.
Yeah. Well, you got to be picky, right? At the end of the day, it is a partnership. So now back to, because you briefly mentioned in some cases we have millennials who do own a property, maybe it's a second property. I wonder if you've come across or anticipate a situation where someone wants to live there, like they want to buy a home for them to live in. Obviously, the rent situation be a little different because cash flow changes in a sense. Can you see this strategy working in that scenario as well? Or is this something that's designed simply to get that second property for both of the partners?
So if the partner wants to live there, the answer is no. This is a vehicle to generate cash flow and appreciation and mortgage pay down for a specific goal, and not to live there, but to be a property that generates money. See, in fact, you have to have a triplex. In other words, maybe an in-law scenario or a two-family home and maybe a house in the back, coach house,
yep,
or a triplex or above to generate sufficient cash flow for a property to be able to help somebody with education or whatever that person's specific need is. But if they're living there, then there's no cash flow there, or the cash flow is non-existent.
Right.
That defeats the purpose.
Unless the purpose was to get a house. But because it affects your cash flow, it changes the equation. It's very difficult to fund moving forward, right? Because you're now balancing the rent versus property, I guess, because over time, rents will fluctuate, property values will fluctuate. There's a lot of unknowns. How long are you going to be there? I mean, it's funny because back to what you're saying with the timelines, like 24 years is a long time. If you consider like 5 years is a typical time frame for someone to move. But I guess if we take ourselves outside of I actually live there as an investment vehicle, it's almost irrelevant, right? Like 25 years is not an unusual thing to see because your lifestyle doesn't matter, right? How things change other than these set goals, which you've obviously laid out.
And really, I think the average would be about 15 years. Let me give an example. In 2005, like just in Hamilton, Ontario, remember that year I bought five or six properties for about $150,000. One in Fennel, one on Mohawk, one in Upper Ottawa, one in Lime Ridge, and Upper Wentworth. $150,000 each in 2005. Now those rentals, they're all two families. Those rentals today are worth over $800,000. It's only 15 years. So if that's all I ever did, buy five properties for $150 each, and today each is worth over $800,000, that's tremendous. But yes, it took 15 years. Nobody wants to wait 15 years. It's like, oh, that's so far away.
Yeah.
So the strategy is not for everybody. It's for a specific person who says, I see the long plan. I want to fund something over the next 15 years or 12 years. That's important to me. I want that money to put aside. And then somebody else who says, I don't have time for the next 12 years. I want someone to take care of it. And I also want to mentor somebody as well. Because like I said, at 56, I have done absolutely nothing for my Caribbean community. I mean, I feel like a bum. I should have done more.
Yeah.
So what have I done? All this investing, I've been a bit selfish. I've been saying to myself, I'm going to get to a position of wealth and I'm going to help the world. You can help the world while you're getting to that position of wealth.
I love that.
But now it's caught up to me. I'm like, okay, I got to do something here. So that's why I sat there and I thought, okay, you know what? Enough BS, enough self-gratification. You know what? Get out there and do something and figure a strategy to help people with a specific problem and get it done.
And I mean, you're doing it, and we'll talk a little bit about how you can apply it as a business as well. But this is really hand-holding. You've got two sets of people, both with their own unique problems that are working together side by side, which is really cool. I mean, we see a lot of people buying properties together that they move into or they split rooms, but not really so much in the investment community. Everybody's more kind of in it for themselves. Either you're looking for money or you're looking for an opportunity to actively make wealth, but not really a situation where people for their own lifestyle are making decisions to work together, which I think is really awesome. So now back to this kind of time frame. So let's say we did 24 years. Obviously the time value of money plays into that. So I'm curious, how does that unfold? Because the cash flow for the young guy that's getting it for the first 12 years would, I mean, all things equal, be worth more. How's that played in at all? Or do you just kind of balance that back out on the equity? Like how does that fit?
Well, here's the good news. The good news is that you can scale everything. So you could say for the first 8 years or for the first 10 years or the first 12 years, we start off with the first 4 years, you get 100% of the cash flow. The next 4 years, you get 70%. The next 4 years, you get 60%. So we can scale it. Just like as a commercial investor with my retail plazas, when I give a 6 or 7 year lease, I build in the increase into that lease.
Right.
Okay. So cash flow doesn't have to be, let's say flatlined for the entire period of time, or all of it does not have to go to one person. It can gradually, let's say, reduce for one, increase for the other, and then the next 12 years, the same concept. Okay.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be black and white. Everything is movable.
That's right. And that's the important part. Everybody thinks strategies have to be, oh yeah, it's, you're renting to own, and anything above 500, I fix. Anything below 500, you fix. No, life doesn't work that way. We have to be able to say, you have a need, I have a need. Here's the documentation. We have the ability to fill in a contract and agreement to suit our needs, and let's make that happen. Now, one thing I did mention, you might have incredible parents who are very wealth conscious, and sometimes you're not. You might have a parent who hates real estate, but now you're stuck because you don't have a parent who believes in real estate investing. Or you're a parent and you have a young adult or a child or a young adult, let's call it, that has no interest in real estate investing, but you are interested. Doesn't mean you have to give that, partner with your own child.
Right.
Find somebody else's kid. At the same time, if you're a young adult, Find somebody else's rich parents who have some money but no time. It doesn't have to be, because we don't choose our parents. Although my parents are great, I love them, but are they well conscious? Not really, right? They gave me all I needed. And sometimes I know people who have young adults who they couldn't care less about long-term wealth and real estate. So guess what? Use somebody else's kid, and don't worry. 6 years from now, your young adult will say, you know what? I want in.
Yeah. And I'm thinking there's probably some parents listening that are like, yeah, and the purpose for my cash flow is going to be to pay for my bum child's rent. Right? Like I'll use this kid, but I love it. I love it. So I know gears are turning. People are trying to think, and I know the heart behind this is to help people with various life goals. Is there a platform where someone could monetize it? So could you have a millennial that is, I mean, they're doing it with no ill intent. Like they're legitimately helping Gen X's with their retirement strategies, and they have, access to deals. They have you as a contact and a platform where they can create this thing. And now they might not have all the money going to private school for kids, but they also have a system where they're feeling like they can do it. And there's an opportunity for them to build, or vice versa. You've got a Gen X that wants to support as many millennials as possible. And maybe that's their reason for doing it. Is this a business that's scalable, or is this really something that is maybe best kept within the hands of people for a purpose within small groups?
Okay, scalability depends on a person's personality type. Some people will never scale. They just want one thing, and if that one thing is there, they're good to go. So if you have a personality where, how can I actually help people and make some money? If I were a realtor, now I have a reason to call somebody and say, hey, you know what? You're a Gen Xer. You have a lot of equity in your property. Why don't you have an investment property? Oh, don't have time. You know what? I have a millennial that I may bring you together. You bring them together, and now you have an extra deal. What if you're a mortgage agent? A millennial who's having a hard time, a Gen Xer who has access to money. You can bring them together. In both cases, you get paid as a realtor or you get paid as a mortgage agent. If you are an investor, you can talk to a millennial. You come across a millennial who's having an issue. You talk to a Gen Xer who has equity. You may even find the property. You bring it together. Then you go find the property, secure the property under contract, and assign the property to them, or wholesale the property to them. You can make money that way. You can also make money as a person who is able to talk to a lot of Gen Xers and talk to a lot of millennials and bring them together and pass it on to the realtor to go and find that property and obviously take care of that. Or if you are the person who has the young adult or the millennial who is just bought a house with you and you have extra room, find another one and another one and another one. Why not have 4 or 5 millennials working with you? You provide the money, they provide the labor. So those are just a number of different ways that you can actually, let's say, monetize this.
I love that. I love that. And I think now what you just said has done is it's taken people from wherever they are and shown there's an opportunity for you to apply this new system to your own business or to create one, right? To help facilitate and be as a consultant. And I love it. I love it. And one of the biggest challenges right now that I want to talk about is this idea of affordability, right? So obviously, I think both generations have their challenges, but I do sense that in the next 5 to 10 years, affordability is probably going to be the single highest issue. And I guess it applies to all generations, but I'm curious if this system that you've got here can be applied at a massive scale. Like it can be applied across the city. Like I'm really thinking this is one potential solution, to be honest with you. That's why when you messaged me about this, I was really excited. Because I think if this is something that people understood, if we had a system that could be rinsed and repeated, I think this could solve a lot of issues where people, yes, you can't get into the housing market, but you might actually be able to still invest. You might be able to get into the housing market. And so I'm curious, like taking this to its climax, I'm curious, have you thought about how this could be rolled out? Is this something that is scalable? Is this something like outside of one person? I mean, as a city and in major cities around the world, is this something that we should keep on our radar as maybe an idea for people with this, knowing affordability is a challenge.
No, I think it is. But keep in mind that if you want to be successful in real estate, you have to have a certain skill set. The skill set to be able to talk to strangers who have houses not for sale or who have buildings not for sale and talk to them about selling that building. See, last year we did about 16 deals. Everyone we spoke to had the concept of selling their property was not on the radar. In other words, we call people who have properties for rent. Hey, I see you have a property for rent. I love your property. It's a great property. And I don't want to rent it. I want to buy it. Oh, but we're not selling. I know. That's how I do business. I know that not every investor loves real estate. Sometimes they inherited it or they bit off more than they can chew. And I know you're trying to rent it, but can I buy it? Can I make an offer? Now, they might say yes. Or if they say no, I might say, do you have any other properties maybe that you have that you don't like? Maybe a donkey here or there. And they might say, yeah, I have a donkey. I go, I'll buy that donkey. Or some might say, I'm not looking to sell. I'm just looking to grow. Hey, if I find something off market, I secure it. Can I pass it to you? So you have to have that ability, first of all, to find off market deals because I hate competition. And when you have an on market deal, half the time, the value goes up. That's number one. Number two is you have to have the ability to create a team, not just in town, but out of town. Okay. I have properties across the country. People think you have to have a property 1 hour from where you drive because somehow it makes you safer. If you have a property manager on deck, you can actually have a property 2 hours from where you live. If you have a team assembled. I was a soldier in the Army and we trained to assemble systems at a distance. And if you have a team, for instance, in Pembroke, you can buy a house for $240,000, 2-family renovated, make a cash flow of $1,000. But you know what? Pembroke is 4.5 hours away from Toronto. Scary. Well, hey, for $1,000 cash flow and for $250, not so scary.
Right.
If you have a team. So it can be done at a distance. You can still get properties that are affordable. You can make things work if you have a system in place. And you have to be able to find off-market deals to still be able to compete. And I think those are some of the aspects that helps you scale up.
Yeah, your investing side is shining there. You're coming through a little bit. Yeah. I just think it's incredible. I think that there's a lot of uses here that you and I haven't really fully thought through. And I would love to hear how people can apply it, to be honest, and see how this can kind of unfold. So I'm going to leave it off here. I'm just going to give you an opportunity to kind of share where people can find you, get a little bit more information. If they have any questions, how they can reach you. And then I just want to encourage anybody, please hit that like button and show support. I know Mathew's I can tell he's had a few sleepless nights planning this thing out. And I'm so thankful you took the time to share it with us. So let people know where they can find you on social.
Actually, I have a presentation on this. It's a PowerPoint presentation video where I talk through it nice and slow with a lot of facts and points. You can go to this website. It's rccsol.com. So rccsol.com/free. And if you go to that website, there's a free video that talks about this. It's called Hug Strategy. And if you check it out, I'll walk through it with you. PowerPoint, much slower as opposed to using fingers. Fingers works. Presentations work better.
Guys, this is maybe an opportunity to help yourself and help others. So I hope you guys got value. If you did, please show support to the channel. But Mathew, really appreciate you taking time to join us again. I look forward to seeing how this plays out.
Hey, you know what? I love being here. You know what? You're a great interviewer. And I thank you so much for allowing me to come on here and share my thoughts.
My privilege. Thank you.